$180,000 on the line. The two best teams in North America, all leading to this one off-spawn fight to decide everything. But first, there is some important context on how we got here. I'm sure most of you are aware, but Peterbot and Poyo had the most dominant year of all time in Chapter 5, placing second, first, and first in the 3 FNCS majors on NA Central, and going on and winning Globals in an incredible fashion. But despite their success, they split up after Globals, leading to Peterbot forming a trio with Cold and Ritual, and Poyo teaming up with Acorn and Agers. These two trios would go on to be the most dominant in North America in 2025, and constantly going head-to-head for the crown. In Major 1, Peterbot's trio was down almost 100 points after day 1 to Poyo's trio, where they almost clutched up on day 2 due to an insane solo clutch by Peterbot and a victory royale to end the tournament, and narrowly lost by 14 points to Poyo's trio, or about 4 kills. In Major 2, Peterbot barely beat out Clicks, Higgs, and Yamzo to win on NAC out of Crime City, winning by only 7 points. Poyo's trio placed 5th due to some personal issues this season, but going into the final major of the year, it was clear who the 2 best teams on NA Central were. Each team had 1 title to their name this chapter, and whoever took the final FNCS major would undisputably be the best trio on the region. It would also help answer the question many people had. Was Peterbot really the driving force behind the duo's success in Chapter 5, or was Poyo really the glue that kept it all together? Throughout the first 2 seasons of the chapter, Peterbot's trio had pretty much gotten the best spot uncontested. In Season 1, where they came second, they had Flooded Frogs uncontested after it received a surprise buff where it added multiple god chests to an underground tunnel in the POI. In Major 2, they had Crime City uncontested with the Mythic Pump at the train nearby and the Unstoppable Medallion. And while Lavish Lair may have been a better POI by the end of the season, Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual still got their say of where they wanted to land at the start of the season, and nobody were willing to contest them. Poyo, Acorn, and Agers decided they had enough of this. On June 7th, the first day of Chapter 6 Season 3, at 4:18 p.m., Poyo tweeted out that him, Agers, and Acorn would be landing at Demon's Domain, the best spot on the map. 1 hour and 6 minutes later, Peterbot announced this is where his trio would be landing also. Both teams refused to back down and give the best POI to the other team, setting them up for an off-spawn showdown the whole season. What made Demon's Domain so strong was not only that it had the most loot on the map, it also had the Mythic Spire Rifle and the Infernal Defenses Medallion, which basically gave you unlimited shield in a meta where the dominant strategy was Storm Surge trading. When scrims finally started, everyone tuned into AussieAntics stream to watch the off-spawn at Demon's Domain between Pete and Poyo. And to start the season, Poyo's trio dominated. This was surprising to many, as Peterbot and Poyo were viewed as the best off-spawn fighters in the world in Chapter 5, as they pretty much got anywhere they wanted uncontested. People saw Peterbot as the main dominant fighting force in this off-spawn machine, so it was really surprising to many that his trio was losing a majority of these fights. Everyone started to realize that what made Pete and Poyo so good off-spawn is that both of them were incredible off-spawn players, and now they were fighting against each other. Something else that people didn't realize was that Agers was also an amazing off-spawn fighter, which tipped the scales in the favor of Acorn, Poyo, and Agers. Over time, the off-spawns began to become a little more even, but still in Poyo's trio's favor, and the first Divisional Cup of the season basically saw this as the result, where they split 3-3 off-spawn, and Peterbot's trio placed 7th, while Poyo's trio placed 10th. Neither team performed up to their standards, as each team could only play 3 games out, but we saw that it might be difficult for them to perform well in finals if they were contesting each other. The trend continued in scrims, where Poyo's trio was slightly better than Pete's trio off-spawn, but this would change in the second and final Divisional Cup of the season. Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual lost 5-1 to Acorn, Agers, and Poyo, and Poyo's trio went on to win the tournament by 70 points, while Pete's trio placed 19th. This was pure domination off spawn, and the fact that Poyo's trio won despite being contested was not a good sign for Peterbot's trio. Something had to change. The one bright spot was that the one game they did make it off spawn, they had a 19 kill 4th, showing that as long as they could make it off spawn, they were still really strong in their end games. So Peterbot's trio made a decision that would change the trajectory of Grand Finals. They switched drop spots to Brutal Boxcars. Brutal was not as good of a spot as Demon's Domain, but it still had an Overlord Spire spawn nearby and decent loot overall. But you might be thinking, well, isn't Brutal Boxcars going to be contested now? Yes, it would. Currently, Dukes, Edgy, and Chance were landing at Brutal Boxcars. Going into Grand Finals, there were 3 heats, or 3 different groups, where 10 teams qualified for Grand Finals from each group. which were the 5 teams that got a victory royale in each of the 5 games in the qualifiers, and the 5 other teams that had the most points across all the games. Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual happened to be in the same heat as Dukes, Edgy, and Chance, so they came up with a plan to take their drop spot while making sure that Edgy's trio didn't qualify so they could get Brutal uncontested in finals. Landing at Brutal off spawn in the qualifier would be too risky, so they decided to land at Demon's Domain uncontested in the qualifier and chase Edgy's trio around the map to make sure they didn't qualify. Peterbot's trio ran them down each game to try and make sure they didn't qualify for finals, while still trying to get enough points to qualify themselves. This is really difficult because running across the map looking for another team often makes it more difficult to deal storm surge damage, depletes your mats and heals, and puts you in bad positions. Peterbot's trio were able to track them down in games 1 and 3 and mess up their games, but Edgy, Dukes, and Chance were able to have decent games in 2 and 4. They were right around the threshold to qual going into the last game, and in game 5, this happened.
Bub, and even Edgy getting taken down, the full team sent back to the lobby. LCQ, they go.
After 5 games, the leaderboard looked like this. Peterbot's team had the most points out of anyone who didn't win a game, and Dukes, Edgy, and Chance, down in 15th, didn't qualify for Grands. They did it. Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual had Brutal boxcars uncontested in Grand Finals. Or did they? See, a Grand Finals lobby has 33 trios, and if you've been doing some math during this video in your head, you would notice that 10 teams qualify from 3 heats to Grand Finals, or 30 teams. There was still the reboot round, where if you won any of the 3 games, you made it to the Grand Finals, letting 3 teams who didn't qualify through heats make it to Grands. Dukes, Edgy, and Chance knew that this was their last shot, and they were coming back with vengeance, as they felt they had been targeted by Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual, and wanted to land on them in finals. They easily qualified to the finals of the reboot round, placing 6th, and on June 31st, the last chance qualifier happened. They placed 4th in their first game, a very strong start, but obviously a win was needed to make Grands. They didn't do as well in game 2, placing 12th, but in game 3 they found themselves in a really strong situation going into the mid-game. They picked up a few kills, and then this happened in the final game of the last chance qualifier.
Walk straight through them. They are pushing into the first order base. Only Edgy's team is the only team inside, just praying the zones go the direction they want. They're running down the tunnel. Edgy has no idea where he's going. He's trying to find his way out. He needs to get into the open area. He does. Edgy in the hangar. He manages. Meanwhile, Edgy, wait, that's why he hasn't played the heal off. Edgy has it under control.
If you have another Menmis down on your popping truck when the thing goes off.
Second place. No. They barely missed out, and Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual still had Brutal boxcars uncontested in Grands. An incredible showing in the reboot round wasn't good enough to get Edgy's trio through to Grands, and somehow, Peterbot's trio had locked down a good drop spot uncontested going into the finals. However though, it really seemed like Acorn, Poyo, and Adris were the strong favorites to win Major 3, as they had won the most recent Div Cup while contested and had the best drop spot on the map. Whatever happened, it was shaping up to be the most exciting finals of the entire year. In day 1 of finals, Poyo, Adris, and Acorn had an incredible start. Back-to-back 10 kill wins, putting them on 210 points after the first 2 games of the tournament. While Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual had a solid start with an 8 kill 5th and a 9 kill 4th, they were now almost 60 points behind. But then something weird happened. Poyo's trio was randomly contested off spawn at Demon's Domain in game 3 by Zyre, Cyrus, and Naps, and they went down early. This is the only game of the tournament where this trio contested Demon's Domain, and it was likely because they were doing so poorly that they wanted to try and get Demon's loot for 1 game and surprise Poyo, Acorn, and Adris, which they were able to do successfully. Peterbot's trio didn't have an amazing game here, a 7 kill 12th, but at this point, it was getting very close. Game 3 was actually won by Kanata, Bolts, and Rapid, a newly formed trio who were going to cause some trouble for the other teams, as you will see later on, as this put them in first place, with Poyo and Pete's trios right behind. But Peterbot's trio decided it was time to make a huge play onto Poyo's trio. By going into replay mode and studying Acorn, Adris, and Poyo's movements each game, they were able to figure out exactly where Acorn was going to farm metal and wait for the island to potentially spawn each game. So they did this.
Wonder who's next, Kanata. Great, he might just come after you too. Here's the setup though, my gosh.
This play allowed them to wipe out Poyo's trio in 26th place with 0 kills, and for them to get a 9 kill second place in game 4, moving them into first place, and Poyo's trio fell all the way down to 7th. This really swung the momentum for the final 2 games of day 1, where Peterbot's trio was able to finish the day with an 11 kill third and a 3 kill third to put them on 482 points. Adris, Poyo, and Acorn though were able to get a 3-kill 4th and an 11-kill 5th to end day 1 to claw back a few spots on the leaderboard, but at this point they were 90 points away from Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual, and it felt like Peterbot was just going to run away with another FNCS. Obviously though, this was not the case, as this video isn't quite over yet. Acorn, Pollo, and Agers came back with a vengeance on day 2, starting out with a 14-kill win with a massive 11-kill performance from Agers, putting them in first place by 10 points. They had a slight hiccup in Game 8, where they placed 14th and allowed Peterbot to take back the lead with a 6-kill 8th by 12 points. It was starting to near the end of Grand Finals, so in Game 9, Peterbot's team would need a big game here if they wanted to push their lead, and that's exactly what they did. They had a 10-kill 3rd, a huge game worth 88 points. But Pollo's trio got a 10-kill win, which gave them the lead by a single point. The lead had been back and forth, and now it was down to a single point with 3 games to go in Grand Finals. In Game 10 though, Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot faltered a little bit, placing 14th but still managing to pick up 7 kills, a hugely important 28 points. But Acorn, Agers, and Pollo clutched a 6-kill 2nd, pushing their point total to 686 and their lead to almost 40 points. It was essential that Peterbot's team did well in Game 11. They couldn't let the gap get any larger if they still wanted to be in contention to win. But unfortunately, early in Game 11, Peterbot gets 3-2-1'd and goes down early, leaving Cold and Ritual as a duo. They run west towards Crime City to reboot Peterbot, but then get separated, and then a full trio notices Cold and starts pushing him. He's all by himself, Ritual nowhere near him, and he has to fight. It seems like it's over. Pollo, Agers, and Acorn are just going to run away with it now. This gap will be insurmountable. With their backs against the wall, Cold ends up doing this.
Goes in this fight. 100.
Nice, bro. You want me to come? Go, go. I'm zipping all the way to you. So it's gonna take me like 100, bro. Nice.
Kill 2.
Get the full. We need all the kills.
Yeah, I got him.
All 3?
Let's go.
A 3v1 to survive in Game 11 of Grand Finals. Ice cold, as the name suggests. This allows the trio to get back into the game and salvage as many points as they can to stay in the race. Unfortunately though, they do go down early in Game 11 in 15th place, only getting 33 points. Agers, Acorn, and Pollo, however, have an incredible game, placing 3rd with 9 kills for a total of 84 points that game. Not only that, Kanata, Rapid, and Bolts get a 14-kill win in Game 11 to shoot them up into 2nd place, putting Peterbot's trio in 3rd place going into Game 12. Acorn, Agers, and Pollo are on 770 points, 90 points ahead of Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual. They needed at minimum 91 points to win, while Pollo, Agers, and Acorn would need to have a 0-point game simultaneously. A Game 12 like this would pretty much be a formality in basically any other circumstance in any other Grand Finals, but not to Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual. They needed a 7-kill win worth 93 points going into Game 12 to pass Pollo's trio, and the only way to stop them from getting any points at all was to land on them off spawn at Demon's Domain, where it all started. The whole season, this had been the off spawn matchup to watch. It was only fitting that it would end this way. They had been consistently beat off spawn by Pollo's trio, destroyed in the most recent Div Cup, but they knew the drop spot from their practice there. Now it was down to who would perform in one of the most important moments in all of their careers.
Ring that bell, ding, 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 let the match begin. All season long, watch it on Aussie stream. 30-something, all for this fight here. Cole gets the gun, he's able to chase Acorn around, who has absolutely nothing. Agers gets one for himself, but he's gonna fall. Peterbot and Ritual are the last 2 alive. Sure, they have no odds at losing this one, and Acorn is just hiding out here, down in the low ground. I think something's gonna happen here that's gonna give away his position here, but it looks like the real kings of the Demon's Domain will be Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual.
Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual did it. In the history of Fortnite, teams landing on first in the final game of the tournament almost always goes poorly, but they defied the odds. Acorn was able to escape from the spawn fight, but the superhero Sprite gave his location away, ensuring that he wasn't able to reboot his teammates. But it wasn't over yet. They still needed a 7-kill win and to make sure that Kanata, Bolts, and Rapid didn't overtake them. They looted Demon's Domain and then went to hunt Kanata, Bolts, and Rapid during the mid-game, but they weren't able to find them. Peterbot's trio decided to play a little bit more passive compared to their normal aggressive playstyle. not because they were nervous, but because they needed to win this game and could not take any unnecessary risks. Going into the endgame, Bolts, Kanata, and Rapid get caught in a mid-game fight on the backside of zone. This fight is really drawn out and draws a lot of attention, and guess who is there to spray and third-party them? Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot. Kanata's trio goes down, leaving it all up to Peterbot's trio to decide the fate of the tournament in Game 12. At this point, they need 4 kills and a win. The half-and-half zone pulls onto the mountain on top of first order base, and Peterbot leads his trio to a good position high up on the mountain with their dashes. They stagger and move again and take the high ground on first order base, and they pull the first moving zone, allowing them to take the high ground early on in the game. Peterbot has the shockwave pistol, which is really strong on high ground as you can spam it and grief the teams below you, and they're able to hold height for multiple moving zones. But then, Ritual accidentally builds a cone where Peterbot is shooting the shockwave pistol down, and launches Peterbot into zone and Ritual off the high ground, but they are able to make it back up together. At this point though, they are starting to run really low on materials and get chopped out on high ground by the Brazilian trio, King, PH Zin, and Phaser, as they make a play for high ground and are able to take it from Pete's trio. So Pete's trio sits on the low ground and chops out height, and are able to use the shockwave pistol to reclaim the high ground. It's a really awkward zone that pulls into the first order base, which can make it difficult for high ground to get a lot of kills. There are 4 teams total when Pete's trio runs out of mats. Still on the high ground, they know they only need 4 kills, but they need to make a play quickly. They drop into the fight, and Cole does about 500 damage but doesn't get a kill. Ritual is able to get a knock on Higgs and kill Taki, and they need 2 kills and the win at this point. They drop again. Peterbot takes out a Minish, and Cold goes down. A 2v2 and they need 1 kill to win. A tag on either Clix or Yamzo wins the tournament. Peterbot tags Yamzo. That's the kill. They just need to win the game.
All the way back. Nice! Let's go!
They did it. They got the 7-kill win they needed, the only possible way they could win, and they did it. The ultimate clutch performance from this trio allowed them to become FNCS champions again, and by 1 singular kill. I am a huge fan of other sports and other esports, but I have never seen such a ridiculous win in any other competition in my entire life. Unbelievable. This is why you need to tune in to competitive Fortnite if you weren't planning to for 2026. The storylines are insane, and they're only going to get better. This tournament was honestly a masterclass in plot armor. A combination of insane calls from Peterbot's trio to grief another trio to take their drop spot, ridiculous clutches, ice-cold off-spawns, a lucky sprite that gave Acorn's location away, and a crazy win to end the tournament. About 1 million things needed to go right for them to win, and if even one of these had gone differently, Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual would not have been Chapter 6 Season 3 champions. It is also really important to give credit to Poyo, Acorn, and Agers, who were dominant all season long in endgames and played an incredible tournament, but the Fortnite gods just were not in their favor. I can't wait to see more storylines like this in Chapter 7, and even more incredible grand finals to come. Also, if you're interested in how Fortnite could fix ranked mode in Chapter 7 with Rank 2.0, click the video on the screen.